Okay, so field trip day here. Um, it's in between conference sessions from our church because this weekend is our general conference. So I sh- I thought I would travel down here. The still Mesa is very far eastern edge of Mesa. I mean, if you follow the street behind me to that, well, it's not a T intersection. The street simply rounds a corner back behind me. But if you were to follow the street behind me, it turns the corner, goes east. Eventually, you'll hit Meridian, which is just basically towards the end of the street there, and then you've got the Pinal County line, and after that, it's just untouched desert and Pinal County. So very far eastern edge of Mesa. A little further to the north, if you were to hit Meridian, you'd end up in Apache Junction, which. But the street right in front of me here is Queensboro. And so if you look at that house with the tree in front of it, and there are three vehicles in the driveway, that was a house that I lived in for a while back in '08. And that is the house of my old roommate, Travis Alexander, which, you come across this video, you hear that name, you may think it sounds familiar, and that's because it probably will be because that name was all over the news from 2008 and all the way up even into this year. Because at the time that I was roommates with Travis, he was murdered. So 2008 I moved in, and a couple of friends helped me move in. Aaron Mortensen and Cody Miller, and they were also both really good friends of Travis. And Travis I knew because of church. He was one of those guys that you saw at every activity, it seemed like, and maybe the church meetings on Sunday, he was one of those people who will often give more comments about subjects. He's the kind to share more. And Travis was always a good guy, regardless of the smear campaign of Jodi Arias and her lawyers. Travis was always a kind person. He believed in paying it forward. That it doesn't mean like, say, Travis bought you lunch and you return the favor. It's pay it forward. Instead of buying Travis lunch, you buy somebody else lunch. Kind of a way to spread a good deed around. And that was something Travis believed in. And Travis was like a motivational speaker for Prepaid Legal, which he worked for. Now, I don't know if they've changed their name again, but Fraud Shield or something might have been the name they changed their name to. Yeah, it's funny because when I was working at the bank at the time, it wasn't until after living with Travis that I started noticing like people were paying Prepaid Legal for their services. No, Legal Shield. It's not Fraud Shield. Legal Shield was the name that they changed to after the murder. Which, I don't know, the guy that testified on Jodi's behalf during the criminal trial was another real scumbag. But Travis did motivational speaking for them, and so he would actually go to their conventions and things and speak to the audience, so that they would be more productive in their sales. Because that's all it really is it's sales. And that's what Travis did. He sold their services. You probably do a lot of cold calling type of stuff and to sell their product, their services. And pretty much, I don't know how useful it would be, but their service was a service where you paid a monthly fee and it gave you access to legal services anytime. So you get any sort of legal questions, you get into some sort of situation like a traffic ticket or I'm sure even just maybe advice for handling assets from a death or something. I mean, whatever you can think of that you would need a lawyer for, you would have access to it. And I don't know really how useful that was, but that's what they did. They're probably still around. Maybe they're still called Legal Shield, maybe they're called something else at this point in time that you're watching this, but I had moved into Travis's. I remember talking to him about moving in just because I was looking for just a change. I had been living with the other roommate, the previous roommate, for I think I probably lived with him about a total of a year and a half over near Ellsworth and Southern, which apparently he after I had moved out of the house I lived in with Chris and the ginger and the fat guy. And apparently he moved into my old room there, which means he must have lost his condo. But we lived in his 2-bedroom condo, and I was looking just for change, and I actually considered moving out of my young single adult ward entirely and moving further west, like West Mesa or so. It would be closer to work, but Aaron, who I'd become friends with, had convinced me to stay within the ward that we live in, which, unlike other churches, like, say, the Catholic Church, where you can sort of choose, because, mega church, you can choose where you want to go, and, it's like that regardless of what religion you are practicing, such as Catholicism or whatever. But, other churches, you can kind of just pick and choose where you want to go. You don't have to necessarily go to the church that's down your street. The church you go to might be 5 miles away. For us, it's different, as the whole area is divided geographically, and you're going to church where you live with the people that you live around, your neighbors and friends that live in your neighborhood. And that it's part of just how the church organizes itself. But anyway, so if I were to go to a different ward, it's because I moved to a different geographical location. And this area was still part of the singles ward I was in at the time. And Aaron had convinced me to stay within the ward, and I remember seeing Travis was always looking for roommates because, for whatever reason, he just always had turnover. I mean, some of the roommates he lived with would maybe be here for like a month, and then they'd leave. They'd move on. And Travis took in all sorts of guys looking for a place to live. Travis would rent out 1, 2, 3 bedrooms in his house. This house right here that we're looking at is Travis's house, and it's like a 4,000 square foot house. I mean, it's huge. Very large, open, generous floor plans. But here on the left side, where the tree, above the bay window there, is 1 bedroom, There's another bedroom, two more bedrooms actually in the back side of the house, and then that second floor, if you look at that window next to the tree above the garage, that is actually Travis's bathroom. That is the master bathroom. That whole right side of the house is the master suite going all the way back. And then there's a loft, a nice big loft separating the master suite from the other bedrooms. Anyway, it was actually going to be nice to have a nice big bedroom, and this is a nice quiet area. This is the part of the neighborhood we've got the larger floor plans, and Travis is actually. Well, here's the funny thing: the morning that I moved in, Aaron and Cody helped me move into Travis's house, and there was somebody else who needed help with moving. Um, our the Harrises were part of the leadership of our ward, and they had a neighbor who was moving, and pretty much the neighbor didn't really say how much help they're really looking for. And what should have been something quick turned into something longer, and that was what Travis had to go do. Which was kind of funny. He was a bit annoyed by it, and he was kind of planning to help me move into his house because was the other person needing help moving, and this is his house, but that didn't happen. But for the three of us, it was very manageable because only a one bedroom worth of stuff, and I was actually able to take a lot of things that I already had. Like I brought my clothes over ahead of time. I packed up all my games and movies and brought those over already. And really, all that I keep saying Travis, all that Aaron and Cody were helping me move were a bed, a shelf and dresser combo, entertainment center, just stuff like that. Stuff that's too bulky for me to handle on my own. And, when I moved, I actually baked a batch of granola bars, which, yes, it is possible to bake those on your own at home. And you'd be surprised how easy it is. I loaded mine up with chocolate chips, and I know I put other nuts in it, and like almonds, and I think maybe I also put in some Reese's peanut butter chips as well, so they were pretty tasty from what I could remember. And it was funny, like that Saturday, in times where I've been going up and down, doing laundry or whatever, getting food, I could spy Travis. Because I left the bag of granola bars on the kitchen counter for anybody to have, and then I remember watching Travis just going to those things repeatedly for some energy, because Travis was kind of husky, if you've seen pictures of him. And he was, well, I'm not sure if eating healthy choice TV dinners were really a healthy option, but he did exercise. He had a treadmill. He had some exercise equipment in his room. At the very least, there must have been a treadmill in there. That Saturday too, he went with his friend Taylor Searle on a bike ride. I think it was like an 8-mile bike ride, and in fact, I remember a few times when I watched coverage on TV, and they flash photos of Travis. There's a photo of him and Taylor with their bikes in the driveway out front here, and I was actually the person who took that photo for him on his camera. The very same camera that would be taken into evidence. We had one other roommate, Zach, and he lived in that room up here at the front. The other bedroom that's at the very back corner back there was empty. Nobody was living in that room. I had the room next to it, which shared a common wall with the master suite. And we did share a bathroom that was located between two of the bedrooms. Of course, having free reign of most of the house was Travis's little pug. Napoleon, and I've seen photos of Travis and Napoleon show up on TV and stuff. One of them had Napoleon sitting on Travis's lap because Travis bought a Prius back in '08, black if I remember correctly. Travis was trying to be more green, and he he decided to buy a Prius, which back then hybrids were fairly new. Um, he believed that having a hybrid meant less gas, so that meant less pollution going into our air, especially here in the Phoenix area. Well, it's nice and blue right now because we had some wind during the week. The storm systems will help clear the air around here, but um, pollution can be problematic here for some people with, like with respiratory problems such as asthma. Travis actually worked from home. His office was the fifth bedroom, which is located downstairs. There's also a bed. There's also a shower just across from that bedroom. There's a bathroom, and so that was the guest bathroom. So when people had to use the restroom when they were here, Travis would throw parties and things like that, or have people over. They would go down and use that bathroom. And I mean, just beyond his office and the bathroom was the laundry room leading to the garage. This bay window in front had like the formal living area. And if you were to, I don't know how well you can really see it, but just past the wall, there is another window, and that's where the dining table was located, the formal dining table. And then the next window back there is the kitchen window where the kitchen sink is located. Travis did have this little snap together barrier going along the whole length of the formal area to keep Napoleon out, just so it will look nice and be free of dog hair. And but you still had a large family room back where the kitchen is, and the kitchen had an island, and it was a pretty good sized kitchen. And that family room was nice and big. Travis had a great big sectional with a big table in the middle with glass in the center of it, and there was a TV down there. Upstairs in the loft, you have probably three, maybe four love sacks. Yeah, I think there were three love sacks. Those great big beanbag chairs you can sit in. Travis didn't have a TV in the loft, but what he did have hanging from the or mounted to the ceiling was a projector, and then there was a screen. And so that made for great movie nights. Travis loved UFC, so he'd throw UFC viewing parties, and that's where they would watch the fights after Travis, saved them. And with the accusations made about Travis, being a pedophile and looking at child porn and things like that, I don't believe any of it. None of us who knew Travis believed it. Especially when you consider how often he was with friends. It's like you have to be real, closed off from people to really, I mean, I think, this is just what I think, and I don't know this is really how it is, but I think you would have to be really just like closed off from other people and always just sort of be in your own space without anybody there. And I don't know, with how Travis worked from home and he was always with friends and exercising and things, it's like, where would you really have time to, look for that stuff and look at it? And he when I had moved in with Travis at the time, he had already broken up with Jody, so I never met her before when they were together. And I remember Aaron and Cody telling me about her, and she's crazy. She's been stalking Travis, and she slashed his tires. She slashed the tires of Lisa Andrews at the time Travis was dating Lisa, and this girl was just trouble. Of course, Zach and I didn't realize really how much that would affect our lives because in June, Travis was murdered and we didn't know it. Travis liked to travel. If you look at some of the pictures hanging from his walls, there were photos that he took of all these other locations. Um, and, uh, Travis had a list of 100 places he wanted to see before he died, and unfortunately didn't get to see those places. Um, I think part of what made Travis want to live to see all these other places was really back in Riverside when he was at this restaurant, and I think it was for like prepay legal or something, because it sounded kind of more like a business dinner, but he had to go get something from his car. He went outside to grab whatever it was in his car. When he re-entered the restaurant, nobody was. He didn't see anybody there immediately, and he found everybody just hiding and cowering under their tables. And Charles came face to face with the guy robbing the restaurants, and he held the gun to Travis's head and pulled the trigger, but the gun didn't fire. It was a misfire, or the chamber happened to be empty, or whatever kind of gun it was, and so Travis lived. And unfortunately, it would be the hands of his ex-girlfriend that he would die. And we thought he had gone out of town and traveling. I mean, even the night before even when I talked to Travis about moving in, that was the night before he was leaving for Colorado for a trip. So he traveled. And, at some point I stopped reading comments. A long time ago, I stopped reading comments about whatever, on different articles that people would type out. And that was mainly because people were just saying stupid things, ignorant things, and they often accuse Zach and I of having committed some wrong we did not commit. Like it's our fault Travis has died. Or even before, people were often suspecting that Zach and I were the ones who killed Travis, but that wasn't the case. The day that Travis died, we were both at work, Zach and I. And my work's all the way in Tempe. At the time, gas was $4 a gallon, so I was actually taking the bus. I would drive to Superstition Springs Mall, which is about, I think, 8 miles or so from here. And I would take the bus all the way down to Priest and Southern, and then I'd walk the last mile to work. And the bus between the mall and Priest and Southern took about an hour. So, if anything, that is probably what saved me from walking in on whatever was happening in this house. Because I worked, and by the time I got home, it was probably after 6 o'clock. I went to maybe at 8, I went to my room to kind of relax before going to our family home evening activity at church, or for our church. And I remember coming home. Travis' spare keys had all disappeared because of other roommates. And he hadn't gotten another one duplicated for me. But I had the garage code, and so I would just enter the garage code, go into the garage, and enter the house that way, because actually, Travis had this open door policy. My door is always open, so come and see me. Which meant that pretty much as long as he was awake, the front door was always unlocked. The garage door was always unlocked. So when you came to Travis's house, just walk in. No need to ring the doorbell or knock. And so I went in, and looking back at it now, I mean, Napoleon probably did seem a little depressed, and I noticed that things looked a little messy, like somebody started cleaning and just stopped, or they, just didn't put any effort into it and just sort of left things as they were. Travis had bought a Hoover floor mate and hadn't used it yet. It was still brand new in the box when I moved in. Floor mate is one of those hard floor cleaners that you can buy. I think they're still made, but you can buy them like at Sears or whatever, and they've got the the Hoover brushes that spin back and forth, and this is for hard floors, but not like the really rough textured tile. But these are for hard floors, and you vacuum out the dirt using the floor mate, and then you fill it with a solution and water, and it scrubs your floors clean. Um, which Travis's house on the bottom floor had tile, and this is what he was going to use to clean the tile, so it'd be easier. And I noticed it had been taken out of the box and used, and that was it. That snap together barrier that kept Napoleon out of the formal area, I found some of that on the bottom of the stairs to keep Napoleon downstairs. So I went to family home evening, and Travis wasn't there. Came home. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is actually a Thursday when Travis died. Yeah, I think that's what the police put together. I think it was a Thursday. I don't know. Around thinking of the timeline at the time, things can get sort of mixed around because it's hard to kind of keep things in order or to think in order. I do remember going through the weekend and see that window that is Travis's bathroom. The light was left on, and being that Travis traveled, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me like if he left a light on in the front just to make it look like somebody was home at night, or um, and people would say, well, like in comments on articles or videos, but his car, the police found his car in the garage, and my reply to that is, so what? Ever hear of a super shuttle coming to pick you up? Ever hear of calling a friend or a relative to give you a ride to the airport? Because we do have an airport very close to here too. Travis could have flown out on Allegiant or something. There was no smell yet, and that's something else that people criticize Zach and I for. The general public is that there was a smell. Yes, there was, but we actually didn't notice the smell until that Monday night when his body was found. He had just been murdered that Thursday or whatever. There's not going to be a smell yet. It takes a while. The body really has to get to a rotten state for it to finally smell. But yeah, that evening I got home, in retrospect, or in hindsight, yeah, things look wrong, but at the time I didn't recognize it. I had never been in a murder scene before. I had never been tied to one. And people were trying to reach Travis all weekend long. Because that next Tuesday, Travis was actually supposed to leave on a trip. It was a cruise to Mexico, which he hadn't told Zach and I about that yet. He probably was going to and just didn't get the chance. Thank you, Jody. He was going to take Mimi Hall. Travis was interested in Mimi, and being that he won this trip through prepaid legal, he was going to go on that trip. And I'm guessing that it was a for four package because two other friends of Travis, Dave and Michelle Lowry, who are our brother and sister, they were going to go too. And people couldn't reach Travis the entire time or for that whole weekend, and the entire time that they were trying to reach Travis, they were filling his voicemail and sending him text messages, and they just weren't getting any sort of response. And his voicemail box became full, and nobody saw Travis at church on Sunday. Nobody saw Travis at FHE, Family Home Evening, on that Monday. And Mimi, Michelle, and one other guy, I don't remember if it was Taylor Searle, if it was another Taylor or what, but there was another person there. The three of them came over that night. I had gone home from Family Home Evening, said bye to the girl that I was dating at the time, and she went home. And being that I had to get up early for work, so that way I could catch the bus at the mall, because I think the bus left at like 6:30 or something like that in the morning. I I went to take a shower and so I can go to bed. And as I was getting in the shower, I thought I heard the doorbell. I knew Zach and Amanda, his girlfriend, now wife, were in his room listening to music, and I could hear the music, but I thought I heard the doorbell, and I came out of the bathroom when I was done and went into my room, and in all that amount of time, they used the garage code to enter the house. First thing they did was go to Travis's office, and because they didn't see Travis anywhere in the house, they saw his car, but they didn't see him in the house, and they went into his office and couldn't find any clues to his whereabouts. And he went upstairs, or the girls and the other guy went upstairs and where they met Zach, and Zach told them that he and I thought that Travis was out of town, or which they knew he wasn't supposed to be out of town because he had that cruise coming up. So they went to his master suite, maybe to see if there were any clues in there, but the door was locked. And so Zach was able to open the door. And, while I was in my room, Zach opens the door because all of the master suite had a locking handle, the other bedrooms did not. Zach opened the door to my room and he told me, we needed to get out of the house now. And he begins explaining to me as I was getting ready to go with him out the door, how we thought Travis was out of town. Well, it turned out he's been in his bathroom the whole time and he's dead. And it's like, wait, what? Travis is dead. It's like Travis is dead. He's been in the bathroom. What happened? We're coming out to the front here. And from where the bedrooms were, from where the stairs brought you up to the second floor, they brought you up to the door to the master suite. And then you had to turn around and go through the loft to get to the other bedrooms. And so I had to walk past his bedroom door, which was open and dark, thankfully. I didn't have to see anything that Zach saw. What Zach saw was blood everywhere. And over there in that bedroom, or in that bathroom, you see the articles and the videos that sort of reconstruct where blood was in the house and where, how events, took place, or, how the events unfolded according to the forensic evidence. And, they mentioned a hallway and, people are gonna make comments, how can you not notice blood all over the hallway? And that's because the hallway that they mention is within the master suite. The bathroom is here up front. The actual bedroom part is at the back of the house. In between them was a closet, and the closet had its own little wall creating a hallway. So Zach looked down the hallway and he could see, without having to walk all the way into the bathroom and through all the blood, he could see Travis, his body in the bathroom. And, before getting into the shower, I started noticing that smell when I got home and was wondering, like, what is that smell? And I was going to ask Zach, but being that he was in his bedroom with the door closed and he was listening to music with Amanda, I didn't want to interrupt them. I would have just asked him, like if I saw him in the morning or, in the evening, or even after Amanda left, if she left anytime soon. But that was when we noticed the smell. The first time was that Monday night, and it was strong. We came out front, and by the time I came out, the others were out here. Michelle was on the phone with emergency responders and telling them, we've just found our friend. He's in his bathroom and he's dead. And I could hear the police sirens, and we did already have at least one police cruiser here already, because there's a police substation not very far from here. So luckily for us, I got officers here very quickly. And news that Travis had been killed spread really fast because over here there's this park. The police weren't letting anybody pass this corner here where this lamp is. They had this area closed off. Um, and I remember looking across at this park, and it's over here on the corner, just so many people from our singles ward alone just standing right there watching on. I remember seeing some of my friends like Aaron and I think Spencer was there, not Corey, Cody. In fact, I think Cody was the first to find out, and he brought our Bishop Layton, with him. And at least from what I heard, he drove down Warner at 100 miles an hour in his Titan, which there's a couple of dips in that road, so they must have flown. But a whole bunch of people from our singles ward who were friends with Travis were all just sitting there or standing there on the corner looking on. And of course, the responding officers needed to take our statements. And they had to separate us too. So I had to sit on the curb over here across the street from the house, facing the house. And, at this point it was, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was dark. It was still kind of cool. Or maybe I was going into shock. I'm not sure. And Zach had some blankets in the trunk of his car in the garage, and the officers let him, pass those blankets out to us because, just because of shock. And the police allowed our bishop to, just to check on us and make sure we were all okay, which I guess I was still okay at the time, but kind of just in that state of disbelief. And I don't know, it just felt like reality started to become just bent and twisted. It's like, what just happened? And, how has Travis been dead? Who would have killed Travis? And eventually, the police had to take us to the station in downtown Mesa for questioning by the detectives. And that was when I met Detective Flores and one other officer. I can't remember his name. By that time, they've, I guess, had a chance to go to the crime scene and look over some of the evidence already recovered. And, I had to go through things like, what was I doing that day, and when did I notice this and that, and, recounting the entire day leading up to, and, how do you know Travis, and just answering all these questions. And, Detective Flores began piecing together so far what he thought was going on, and, because he asked, because I remember some of his questioning having to do with the rendezvous with a lady friend, and which would explain, when looking at the evidence that we saw in the trial, I mean, some of Detective Flores' questions made sense for what he asked me, and that was because they found photos on Travis's camera. But by the time I left the police station, it was already past 4 a.m. Cody picked me up, Cody Miller. In our ward, he was our eldest quorum president, and then Nikki Broby, she was the Relief Society president. So basically, he was like a leader for all the guys. She was like a leader for all the girls. They took me and Mimi back to Nikki's place, and Mimi would wait there to be picked up by somebody else or something, or she would go home from there. And I went with Cody to his house, and I finally got to sleep. When I woke up later in the morning, I was able to call work and let them know what had just happened, and I didn't know when I would be back into work. And I wound up only working Monday and I think Thursday that week. The rest of the days, I was just sort of stuck in this limbo, just sort of waiting for the house to open up so I could get my stuff out. And it was a long week. I remember that next night, we did this. The bishop had a meeting at our building, and Travis's sister, I don't know if it's Tanisha or Samantha, but one of Travis's sisters is actually in the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and her department was able to get information which helped us in filling us in on what was going on. And at the time, they weren't 100% sure who the murderer really was. I'm sure everybody had an idea, though. Out of us 6 crime scene witnesses, we all, well, I was blanking on the name at the time, but we all pretty much named Jodi Arias as somebody to look at because she was the number one person we could all think of who would want to harm Travis. And Bishop Layton gave us whatever information that they had about the crime, and some of the theories that they had going that he shared with us involved like a business transaction gone wrong and somebody ordered a hit and things like that. And eventually what would happen, well, if it unfolded on TV as you saw with Jodi having been arrested and charged with Travis's murder, and it was proven that she murdered him. But I was just, I don't know, from there on, like, fear began to take hold of me. And because I remember one of those nights at Cody and his roommate Kent's house, taking a shower, and I could hear like a helicopter up above and the loudspeaker, and the police they were looking for someone, and that kind of freaked me out. That Thursday night, Cody's roommate Kent had to go back to Snowflake for a funeral for his uncle. And that Thursday night was the first night that Lisa Andrews and her roommate Elena would be sleeping in their house because they were too afraid to. Because all we knew at the time was a murder was on the loose. Lisa obviously had an idea. Jodi was behind it too. And they asked Cody to protect them that first night. And a bunch of other people too from our ward were having a party at their house with all the lights on just to sort of help them, just put them at ease. And I wasn't going to sleep in their house alone, so I went with Cody over to their house. And I slept in the back of the house with another guy who was there named Josh Craig, I believe was his name. Cody slept in the living room up front with a loaded gun, just in case. In case someone came knocking. And then the next morning they opened up the house, we were able to get our stuff, and a friend, Brandon Gunnell, let me stay at his house in the meantime while I find a new living situation, which for other reasons took about 2 months, which is a little too long, I think, but yeah, so pretty much I don't like to really be out in dark places on my own. I can get kind of terrified of certain places, and it was so irritating at this one house, when I was living with Chris and the ginger and the fat guy. At least Chris takes the trash out, but the ginger and the fat guy, especially the fat guy, he would never take trash out. He did it like once and that was it. And by the time I would find a full trash can and it needed to go out, it was night and it was dark. And the later it got, the worse it felt outside because, just behind the wall was where the trash cans were located. And it was dark in the backyard. There's only the one light on the porch. And then the front of the house didn't have lights on it, just at the front door. And I would have to walk out the front door and around the garage on the outside to the gate where I could get to the trash cans. And there was a dark cul-de-sac next to that house, and it just freaked me out. I had trouble taking the trash out just in that house and in other houses too, when it gets dark out. And like if I were to go somewhere or come home, it's like between the door and the car door, I'd have to hurry because I just did not want to be out. I don't want to be out alone in the dark, and um, it I deal with fear quite a bit with this whole situation, and you know what Jodi Arias did was just out of plain selfishness. Obviously, if she couldn't have Travis, then nobody could. She was just spiteful and vindictive. And you know what? I was one of those people who was hoping that she would get the death penalty. Yeah, she's gonna have to suffer rotting in jail, but you're in prison, but I still would have preferred the death penalty. You know, wipe her away from existence. Because let's face it, she didn't show Travis any mercy. She stabbed him 29 times. She slit his throat from ear to ear. She shot him in the head. And she clearly showed no mercy for him. Why extend her mercy in return? She is pure evil. And all I can do is just hope that she never slips through the cracks somehow. Because I don't want to have to deal with a world where she has somehow escaped from prison. Because you never know if she's going to come after me or come after Zach. Because we were the roommates, and, based on our testimony and testimony from others like Lisa and, Deanna Reed, I mean, you never know if she would come after any of us because we're against her. And, you know, it, I've gone on TV a few times on Nancy Grace